for now what you need to know on a typical Monday. And by typical, I mean a busy Monday. A lot going on in the National Football League. And the top story, even though he's not the guy that he once was from a sizzle standpoint, from a production standpoint, he was having his worst season before Sunday, it's still a big deal when any star player, current or former, or a little bit, I'm trying to be nice to the guy, but he's not. Can we stipulate OBJ isn't what he once was? But still,
yes.
Torn ACL, out for the year, jarring, affects Cleveland in ways that we don't yet know, but still, it's a big deal. And I feel bad for the guy because he injured himself hustling after an interception. How many times do we see guys make business decisions, and now we know why they do? Because you get yourself into an uncharacteristic situation like that, and you can get jumbled up and you can get injured and your season can be over.
Yeah, kudos to Odell Beckham for trying to make the play. We saw DK Metcalf in the game last night run down Buda Baker. I mean, you like guys to hustle in those situations despite the play not going their way. And he was trying to make a play, and totally unfortunate. I did find it sort of funny that people said on the internet, have said all day, hey, who are the Browns going to go out and trade for a receiver? Do they really need another receiver? I'm just saying this is a team that's built around the run, and Chubb's going to come back. And this, to me, perhaps makes their offense better because they won't have to worry about getting the ball to Odell Beckham, and they can get it to the open receiver, and they can concentrate on running the ball, all those things that they're good at. So I want to see this offense without him in it, just to see if they're not going to try to force the ball into Odell Beckham just to keep him happy. He did lead the team in targets, and maybe he shouldn't have. He hasn't been the same receiver, Mike, since those first 3 seasons. The last 4 seasons have not been good. He hasn't made a Pro Bowl, and he hasn't made a Pro Bowl for a reason. And as we know, everyone makes the Pro Bowl.
Well, that's true. We could make the Pro Bowl. That's how far down they are getting in the barrel that we almost are eligible for it. All right, before I echo your thoughts, because I agree with most of what you said, let's hear from Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, on the impact of Odell Beckham Jr.'s season-ending injury on the team.
The energy he brings to practice, the energy he brings to games, you can't, no one else is going to be able to bring that type of juice. But it's our job to find the guys that can go compete, that we can go put them in spots where they can succeed. And I think we'll be able to do that. That's not easy. I don't want to have to do it. And I'm very disappointed for Odell, but that's the nature of this beast. And injuries are part of this game, and doesn't mean any of us have to like it, but we do have to deal with it.
He definitely brings a lot of juice, but you know what? He only had one really significant and impactful game this year, and it was against the Cowboys. And in hindsight, the win over the Cowboys not as impressive as it was at the time that it happened, because the Cowboys have been anything but impressive this year since then. And I talked to Stefanski right after that game. He said, it's on me to get Odell Beckham Jr. involved early in games. And then the next week against the Colts, he was mostly a decoy. And then the next week against the Steelers, he didn't do much of anything. Now, they went to him right out of the gates. One of the first plays from scrimmage, interception, and that's what resulted in the torn ACL. So they're trying to get him the ball, but it's that pressure, that constant presence, that constant thou shalt get the ball to Odell Beckham Jr. that became a distraction for this offense over the last 2 years. So here's where I'm with you, Charean. I don't know that this is going to make the Browns' offense, in the grand scheme of things, dramatically worse. Now, it's always helpful to have a guy who commands double coverage, a guy who runs down the field and takes a safety with him and opens up everything underneath. I don't know that they need that with the running game that they have. And when you balance out the trade-off, you give up the guy who commands double coverage, you take away the guy who demands the ball. And there's always that narrative, and there's always that pressure. And it reminds me of the year after Calvin Johnson retired from the Lions. I actually thought Matthew Stafford was a better quarterback, at least in that first year, because he could just throw the ball to whoever was open. without holding it a little bit longer to wait for Calvin Johnson to get open, without that extra half second of, should I throw it even though he's double covered and maybe he'll catch it anyway? Sure, what the hell? I think that you remove that. Look how well Baker Mayfield played yesterday. It's like, oh, he's not going to play well without Odell Beckham Jr. Well, once he got the 0 for 5 out of his system, he went 22 for 23. So I don't think this is going to be a huge loss, if at all. And I hate to say that because he is a great player. But just all the dynamics that went along with it, I don't know that this is a major negative for the Cleveland Browns.
You know what? For certain, it takes away, Mike. Over the next week, it takes away trade speculation. And you were one who was saying, I think the Browns need to trade Odell Beckham. Well, they can't do that now. That's done. That's over. We're not going to be talking about that all week. And maybe that would have been something the Browns would have looked at. Maybe he wouldn't have been there for the rest of the season anyway. They could have gotten probably great value for Odell Beckham. And now he's not going to be in the lineup for a different reason. And I know they don't like losing him to injury. He is a great player. He does command that respect. But I don't know that this is going to affect their offense all that much. I think it allows them to run the ball, which is what they're really good at and which is what they should be doing all the time because they're really a great run offense. And take the ball out of Baker's hands. Don't let him make those mistakes. Throw it when you have to throw it. And that's when he's good. And that's when this offense is good.
Hey, throw it to Donovan Peoples-Jones, right? There's other guys. Next man up.
Yep.
Peoples-Jones makes the game-winning touchdown catch yesterday. Jarvis Landry is still there. And you don't have to go out and make a trade to replace an Odell Beckham Jr. Just go forward with who you have. Keep working the guys you have. You know, they may not be trading David Njoku. He's still around. They got a couple of touchdowns out of Harrison Bryant yesterday. They've got Austin Hooper. So you've got weapons. Use the weapons you have and move forward and let Baker Mayfield develop into the quarterback you want him to be. I remember from the moment that they traded for OBJ, I thought, is Cleveland big enough for both Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr.? And I still believe the two of them never really clicked the way that they should have, for good reason. Odell Beckham Jr. shows up for the first day of the offseason program in 2019, poses for the pictures, speaks to the media, and then never comes back for the voluntary portions, for most of the voluntary portions of the offseason program while Baker Mayfield's there busting his butt getting ready for the season. I think that may happen. I don't know this, but I'm just applying logic and common sense and trying to observe and understand human nature. I can't imagine the quarterback of the team is all that happy with a guy who does a drive-by and is big of a star, if not bigger than Baker Mayfield right out of the gate. So I think this actually could help the Browns. And when you look at their schedule, and I know this would qualify me for a bingo square on the morning show because apparently whenever we bring up the schedule, it's I don't know. I guess it's an objectionable thing to actually look at the broader perspective of the season. But the Browns have the Raiders up next and then a bye. They've got at least 5 more wins on this slate of games. They'll have 5 more games they should win, and they win the games they should win. Now, yesterday it took a little extra work, and it looked like it wasn't going to happen, but they still got the win, and that's going to give them confidence going into this game at home against the Raiders. After the bye, Texans win. Eagles should be a win, but with the Eagles, you never know. At the Jaguars, hey, that's just chalk that up as a W.
Win.
At the Titans and the Ravens are 2 games that they need to worry about, and they got the Steelers week 17 after they play the 2 New York teams. There's 3 games that they should lose. 3 games, Titans, Ravens, Steelers. The others should win. The Raiders, I think, is the one that falls into the middle ground this week, especially with the Raiders trying to get back on the right path after getting blown out yesterday. So I think the Browns got 10, maybe 11 wins. That'll get them to the playoffs. And they're going to, and you know what's going to happen? As soon as the season ends, the narrative is going to be they should just go ahead and trade Odell Beckham Jr. now. They don't need him. The team got better once he got injured. That's what's going to happen if this team makes it to the playoffs, as it should.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski, we're going to be talking about him as coach of the year because it's going to be, oh, look what he did without Odell Beckham, disregarding what that schedule looks like. And they probably would have won these games either way anyway. But he is going to be a candidate for coach of the year considering the Browns' history. There's no doubt about that. If they go do what we think they should do, what the expectations are, what the line's going to say as they go play all these games. But I would like to know, Mike, from your perspective, because you have pushed him, you have pushed a trade thinking that they should trade him. What does this do for his trade value, do you think, in the offseason? Is there going to be a team that would step up after this injury to say, yeah, we want Odell Beckham on our team and we're willing to give you a high price for him?
It's going to be hard to trade him now until you know that he's healthy. And when will we know that he's healthy? April, May, June.
Yeah.
So I think that no one's going to touch him until they know that he's healthy. And even then, I think the value has gone down dramatically. They could have traded him this past offseason. And there was a report from WFAN that the Vikings and the Browns were talking about it. And of course, everybody denied it because that's what you have to do. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. And I wouldn't have been surprised if something would have bubbled up this week. Maybe from his perspective, not the Browns saying, let's cut and run, but maybe some agitation from Odell Beckham Jr. if he had mustered the nerve to say, I want out. I think he always wants to be perceived as a great teammate, and great teammates don't say, trade me off of this team. But my guess is he would have welcomed it if the opportunity would have arisen to go to a better team, to go to a team that can beat good teams. That was part of his complaint last week in his press conference when he explained why he was frustrated. They're beating bad teams. They're not beating good teams. Give us all these bad teams. That's fine. All that gets us is a first-round exit from the playoffs. So I think that there's an alternate universe out there where he didn't get injured yesterday, and this week, speculation, reports, rumors, and the possibility of a deal being done for Odell Beckham Jr. Wednesday or Thursday. And remember, those are the days to keep an eye on, Wednesday or Thursday of this week. Because of the COVID-19 delay, you've got to do the 5 days of testing before you can get into the team. If you want your guy that you trade for ready for week 9, you got to get the deal done by the end of this week so he can join you for practice next week.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.